Today is the 29th August 2024. In this video, we are going to talk about the death of Kazi Nazrul Islam, the national poet and the rebel poet of Bangladesh and of the whole world literature. Though Nazrul Islam wrote in Bengali, but he has that kind of popularity and his literature has spread far beyond the national borders of Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan. Now Nazrul is a poet of world status. His poetry, his essays, his novels, his dramas have been translated into different languages, including English, and now Nazrul has been being studied in different different universities in the Europe and the United States of America. So, to commemorate the death anniversary of Kazi Nazrul Islam, now I am going to tell you something, and uh, usually now I am going to share uh, from Wikipedia the free and death of Kazi Nazrul Islam. In this video, we are going to talk about the illness and death of Kazi Nazrul Islam. Nazrul Islam's wife Pramila Devi fell seriously in 1939, just in the year when the Second World War started, and she was paralyzed from the waist down. To provide for his wife's medical treatment, he mortgaged the royalties of his gramophone records and literary works for 400 rupees. He returned to journalism in 1940 by working as chief editor for the daily newspaper Nabajug, simply means New Age. Nabajug was a Bengali language daily newspaper published from 1920 to 1944. Its English is New Age, founded by the Bengali politician A.K. Fazlul Huq. Here I would like to tell you about A.K. Fazlul Huq means Abul Qasim Fazlul Huq. He is popularly known as Sheri Bangla. He was a Bengali lawyer and politician who presented the Lahore Resolution, which had the objective of creating an independent Pakistan. He also served as the first and longest Prime Minister of Bengal. On hearing about the death of Rabindranath Tagore on 8 August in 1941 is the year when Nazrul was also physically and mentally stable. Shocked Nazrul Islam composed two poems in Tagore's memory. Rabindranath Tagore is in Bengali language called Vishwakobi, or we simply call him a cosmopolitan poet. He is a poet whose poetry spreads far across the world. One of the two poems, Rabihara, means loss of Rabi or without Rabi, without the presence of Rabindranath Tagore, was broadcast on the All India radio. Within months, Nazrul Islam himself fell ill and gradually began losing his power of speech. His behavior became erratic. He started spending recklessly and fell into financial difficulties. In spite of her own illness, his wife constantly cared for her husband. However, Nazrul Islam's health had seriously deteriorated and he grew increasingly depressed. He received treatment under homeopathy as well as Ayurveda. But little to a mental asylum in 1942, which is very sad for us. Making progress, Nazrul Islam and his family began living a quiet life in India. In 1952, I'd like to tell you 1952 is the year when Bangladeshi people tried to establish Bangla as the national or official language of Pakistan. He was transferred to a psychiatric hospital in Ranchi. Ranchi is the capital and second largest city of the Indian state of Jharkhand. Ranchi was the center of the Jharkhand movement, which called for a separate state for the tribal regions of South Bihar, northern Odisha, western West Bengal, and the eastern area of what is presently called Chhattisgarh. Through the efforts of a large group of admirers who called themselves the Nazrul Treatment Society, Nazrul himself and Pramila were sent to London then to Vienna for treatment. London, here I looked. London is the England is the capital of England, and Vienna is the capital of Austria, present day Austria. The examining doctor said he had received poor care, and Dr. Hans Hoff, here you can see the picture of Dr. Hanshoff. Dr. Hanshoff was an Austrian psychiatrist and neurologist, a leading neurosurgeon in Vienna. Diagnosed that Nazrul had Pick's disease. Pick's, you can see here the picture of Pick's disease. In my YouTube channel, you will get several videos on Pick's disease. Another name of Pick's disease is frontotemporal dementia or FTD, or frontotemporal degeneration disease, or frontotemporal neurocognitive disorder. This is a disorder of the brain. This is a disorder of the dysfunction of the neurons. This is a disorder of the synapses in human body. In this Pick's disease, when someone is diagnosed with Pick's disease, it is seen that most of the neurons, most of the synapses got damaged or got destroyed. That's why the people suffering from this Pick's disease cannot normally lead his life, cannot communicate easily, cannot even move his body. He becomes speechless and he becomes uncommunicable. That's why it's it's very difficult for the patient to do his normal life activities. However, his condition was just to be incurable. If anybody suffers from Pick's disease, it is still up to the year 2024. There is no cure or no treatment available. So this disease is called incurable. Nazrul Islam returned to Calcutta on 15 December 1953. On 30 June 1962, Pramila died. It's a very shocking news for Nazrul, because Nazrul has already been almost totally incapable and unable to lead his normal life. Nazrul Islam remained in intensive medical care. He stopped working due to his deteriorating health. Despite receiving treatment and attention, Nazrul Islam's physical and mental health did not improve. One thing here I'd like to tell you, that if anybody suffers from this Pick's disease, he cannot maintain his normal life. And Nazrul Islam soon died from his long-standing ailments on 29 August 1976. Today is 29 August 1979 August. So today is the death anniversary of Kazi Nazrul Islam, the Bangladeshi rebel poet and the national poet of Bangladesh. In accordance with a wish he had expressed in one of his poems, he was buried beside a mosque on the campus of the University of Dhaka. Here you can see the mausoleum of Kazi Nazrul Islam. This mausoleum is situated just beside the central mosque in Dhaka University. Nazrul wrote in one of his poems, he desired in one of his poems that he should be buried beside the mosque so that he can hear the azan of the muazzin. Controversy has been reported around the funeral of Kazi Nazrul Islam. Nazrul Islam's sons requested Bangladesh High Commission in Delhi to arrange for the return of their father's body to India by an aircraft so that he be buried beside their mother's grave as per her last wishes. A space had been reserved for his burial next to her mother in the poet's native village, Churulia. You see, Churulia is a suburb of Asansol under the Jamuria city block in the Asansol Sadar subdivision of the Paschim Bardhaman district in the west, in the state of West Bengal, India. When the sons arrived in Dhaka for the last rites, they found that they were completely without their attendants and that the poet had been buried in Dhaka University. Popular demand continues in West Bengal for the poet to be buried back in India. Bangladesh observed 2 days national mourning, and the Parliament of India observed a minute of silence in his honor. So here we can see that both both the government of Bangladesh and the government of India have been very much shocked over the death of Kazi Nazrul Islam, and Indian people and the relatives of Kazi Nazrul Islam also desired to have Nazrul buried in Churulia. But as per the wishes, according to the according to one of his poems, when he said, Nazrul said, Nazrul wants to die. Nazrul wants to stay in the grave from where he can listen to the azan of the muazzin. So it's very shocking news. Now, in this video, I don't like to elongate my because it's a very shocking news. It's very much grievance for us that Nazrul died this day, 29 August in 1976. I'd like to tell you about that. The has attacked Kazi Nazrul Islam is the Pick's disease. Here I'd like to tell you something about Pick's disease. What is Pick's disease? Pick's disease is called frontotemporal dementia. There are several kinds of disorder. Is called FTD or behavioral frontotemporal dementia. Primary progressive aphasia, semantic dementia, multibasal syndrome, progressive or PSP, behavioral or semantic dementia, progressive non-fluent aphasia, neuronal intermediate filament inclusion disease, basophilic inclusion body disease, genetics. And here I would like to tell you something that if anybody, for example, Kazi Nazrul Islam had been suffering from FTD or frontotemporal dementia, or simply the dysfunction of the neurons of his brain. So that's why I'd like to tell you something. I'd like to focus on the frontotemporal dementia. Genetics is the cause. Alzheimer's disease is also a cause of why a man suffers from frontotemporal dementia. Here you can see the picture of human brain. This is hippocampus, ventricles, Alzheimer's brain. Is that by being affected with the disease frontotemporal dementia, Nazrul has been unable to communicate. Nazrul has been unable to lead his normal life activities, and it's also very much sad for us that Nazrul Islam's wife had died in 19. Nazrul died in 1976. During these 10 plus, 12 plus years, Nazrul had to suffer a lot. Nazrul had to stay in ex-PG hospital or present day Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman University. He had been treated, he had been taken care of, he had been nursed by the health. So, shocking for us that if Nazrul would have suffered from this disease, he could have produced more literatures. Here you can see the in this picture. Here you can see the grave of Kazi Nazrul Islam. In one of his poems, he said, "Mosjideri pashe amar kobor diyo bhai." It means, bury me next to the mosques, brother. Nazrul Islam is buried mosques of the Dhaka University. You see, Dhaka University is the oldest university in Bangladesh. It is established in 1921. It is the oldest and it is still active university, and now one of the glorious universities in Bangladesh. This is all about the illness and death of Kazi Nazrul Islam, and I hope the disease frontotemporal dementia or Pick's disease still has no cure, has no medicine. So I would like to urge on this day when Kazi Nazrul Islam almost 55 years ago died of Pick's disease or frontotemporal dementia, I would like to request all the doctors, all the researchers to try to make more progressive research and try to find out the treatment so that no more Nazruls, nobody suffers from this Pick's disease or frontotemporal dementia. And this in this class, now I have made this video in English. The reason is very simple, because Nazrul is not only confined to Bangladesh or India. Nazrul is now a poet of all the people across the border of Bangladesh, the people who have been tortured, who, who have been suppressed, the people where there is human rights violation. We get the poems of Kazi Nazrul Islam. The poems of Kazi Nazrul Islam, the short stories of Kazi Nazrul Islam always inspire us to stand by the oppressed, to help the suppressed, to aid the people who have not got their basic human rights, who are not equally treated. So that's why in this day, one thing I'd like to tell you that on the YouTube or Facebook will not help you to be a master or a pandit or an expert in Nazrul. If you want to be expert in Nazrul, please make a vow, make an vow, make an oath that from this day on, you will start reading the poems of Kazi Nazrul Islam, you will start Nazrul Islam. We should study the poems, novels, the short stories, the Shama Sangits, or the Nazrul Gitis. We should study them. If we don't study simple reformation will not help us to have a very prestigious position in the world. If we want to establish our country as a very dignified one, as a country maintaining human rights, as a country where there is no human rights violation, as a country where there is peace and justice. If you want to make Bangladesh, if you want to make India, if you want to make your country, wherever you are listening to this video, since it's the age of online, it's a global difference between Bangladesh and the United States. So anybody who is listening to the lecture, please read, peruse, study the books, the writings Nazrul had written for us. And once again, I'd like to request all the doctors, all the biologists, all the neurologists, all the doctors, all the public health workers, please try to make some research so that we can have a good cure Pick's disease or frontotemporal dementia. But if anybody suffers from this, he can be cured from this disease and he makes a very normal life. He conducts a nice life. He conducts a very good life. He conducts a functional life. And I don't like to elongate my video. So one thing I'd like to remind you, health is wealth. If you are not healthy, you are not wealthy. If you have a broken health, you will be poor today or tomorrow. That's why out of 24-hour clock, you must have a sound sleep from 7 hours to less than 9 hours. If you don't sleep, you will suffer physically, you will suffer mentally, you will develop lead a peaceful, fit life. You have to have a sound sleep of 7 hours to 9 hours. So once again, I'd like to request you, please study the books of equality. If you want to find justice in the world, if you want to establish equality, fraternity among the mankind, read the poems of Kazi Nazrul Islam, either in English or in Bangla. The writings of Nazrul will always inspire you to help the people who have been tortured, who have been suppressed, who have been oppressed. So, depend on my lecture only. Don't depend on the YouTube only. Don't depend on the online media only. Just go to the textbook, go to the market and have a textbook collected library of Kazi Nazrul Islam, either in Bengali language or in any English language. And I hope Nazrul will help you a lot. Nazrul is not only a simple poet, he he was born a Muslim, but he married a Hindu. He is a poet. He did not care about religion, but ultimately he wanted to die beside a mosque so that he could listen to the azan. But he married a Hindu girl because he was a humanistic poet. He was a humanitarian poet. He maintained all over his life, not only in his lives but also in his writings. So I would like to video here, and if anybody who is listening to this video, please start reading, start reading, start perusing, start analyzing, start criticizing the writings, poetry, poems, novels, short stories, Shama Sangit, Nazrul Giti, written by Nazrul. And I hope if you study, if you research, Nazrul will help us to build a peaceful society, to have a nice, elegant society where there is no discrimination, where there is no human rights violation, where there is no discrimination in any kind of whatever it is. So I'd like to thank you who have been already listening to this lecture, and please share this video, because for this reason I have made this video in English so that all the people far across the globe, far across the world can listen and talk about. And please go to Google if uh, anybody who does not understand Bangla or whose mother tongue is not Bangla, please try to go to Google, try to read the books of Nazrul in English or in any other languages, because his writings have been translated into several languages. I do hope you will start reading and studying Kazi Nazrul Islam's writings. And I hope today or tomorrow we will have a beautiful world where there will be no discrimination between religions, no conflicts between religions, no anxiety between or among various types of faiths or beliefs. So thank you very much for listening to this video, and please try to share more read. Nazrul doesn't need to. Nazrul has already been popular. He needs to be studied. He needs to be perused. He needs to be researched. Wishing you all will be the followers of Nazrul, and thank you very much. Bye bye.